What's up, YouTube? This is Too Raw for TV. So before I get into this video, I want to give a shout out to a couple of subscribers for showing love to the channel. Much respect to the brother Would You Like to Know for the $10 donation via the Cash App. Leaves a note saying fire video on these current NBA crybabies. Yep, I've done a series of videos on this channel and on my other channel showing you how players in the past had to do twice as many, 3 times as many or more back-to-backs. The 72 Lakers had to do a couple of back-to-back-to-back games. The 69 Celtics had to do one stretch. They played 4 games in a row. The 1962 Warriors with Wilt, who played almost every minute of every game that year, 48 and a half minutes per game, 50 points a game. No fatigue had to come sometimes had to play a factor, but he still became the first player in the history of the NBA to make 50% or more of his shots that year. In a league where the league average was 43, 44%. But they had stretches where they played 4 games in a row, and one stretch where they played 5 games in a row. If I'm not mistaken, I think it was December 31st, 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. Remember correctly, in 1962. Might be a little off with that. But those guys really had to play many games in a row. 5 in a row? And you got guys complaining about 12 back-to-backs in the season. You even got guys wanting to reduce the schedule to 62 games. And it's media that's actually trying to convince you that that's a plausible and reasonable reduction, when these so-called inferior athletes of the past, which they've trained you to despise and to disrespect, why were they able to do it? And don't come with the slower pace. That's something that started in the late 90s. The 60s, the 70s, and 80s all had faster paces. The pace didn't start slowing down until really gradually the late 80s into the 90s, and accelerated in the mid to late 90s into what we saw in the 2000s. But I'm sorry for my little rant, man. It just pissed me off, man. Also want to give a shout out to another subscriber for showing love to the channel. Long-time subscriber, the brother Marvin Johnson, coming through with the $20 donation via the Cash App. Much respect to him for showing love to the channel. So, I want to talk about these failures. All right? Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving. He don't get out the hook either. Okay? Now, it's not his fault. But, at the end of the day, the move that they pulled was bullshit. Now, ultimately, you know what I'm saying, despite the fact that Luka didn't play, Kyrie Irving was ruled out with some injury that Allen Iverson would have played through. But anyway, despite the fact that I think they were out, I think Christian Wood didn't play. I think either all or most of their starters didn't play. The reserves put up almost enough of a fight against the Chicago Bulls to beat them. But it wasn't enough, and they lost 115 to 112, and they have been eliminated from playoff contention. All right? At the end of the day, look, I don't want to hear this dude compared to Larry Bird ever again. Nick Wright is out of his mind for saying this is a top 20 player in the last 50 years. Are you insane? This fucking pot-bellied fucking slob, man, get this dude off of any fucking top list, whatever. Unless Luka is trying to give you his top 20 restaurants in the Dallas metropolitan area, I don't want to hear nothing about his opinion about being top nothing. And I'm sorry. But I'm sorry this has to be fucking said about Kyrie Irving. Outside LeBron James, for the most part, or everybody else he's played with, it's always been mediocrity. I'm sorry, it's too much of a history now. Yeah, they had that great start in Boston, but without him, without Gordon Hayward that year, that team went all the way to the Eastern Conference Finals to a Game 7 against LeBron and the Celtics. That team was led by, who was it on that team? A young, I'm trying to think who was on the team back then. I think it was a young Jaylen Brown, young Tatum, the guy that's with Charlotte right now, the name eludes me right now, but they had some different players. I can't remember if, no, Thomas wasn't there anymore. Isaiah was traded by that time, Isaiah Thomas. But they went to the finals without Kyrie. And then we understand how mediocre they were the next season when Kyrie was healthy. And then Kyrie goes to Brooklyn, and it's not all his fault. I get all of that. But you can't argue he hurt the team. Even though I supported his stance, he wasn't playing with them. That hurt the team, obviously, with his lack of presence. Then last year, into this year, terrible fucking return that he had. They had a losing record when he came back, including getting swept in the playoffs. This year was a fucking clusterfuck, but I understand why he wanted to get out of Brooklyn. But it's been a mediocrity, galore with the Mavericks. And like I said, it's not just him, but he's part of the problem, man. I don't know what it is. I don't get it. He's a great player, but I don't know. It's starting to come across as if he's a great individual talent, and if he is on and he can get buckets down the stretch, he can be a very effective player. But he doesn't elevate players around him. And really, neither does Luka, outside of his passing ability at times. But the problem with Luka is, defensively, he hurts the team. And then with Luka, even with his passing ability, he doesn't get other people involved because he dominates the basketball so much. So he's become kind of predictable. And I think teams are starting to figure him out and the Dallas Mavericks out. But what gets me is the way that this organization quit. They weren't out of it. It was a long shot, but you were not mathematically out of the play-in tournament. You quit. You did the fans of Dallas a disservice. Mark Cuban, Kyrie Irving, Luka Doncic, the organization as a whole, they failed the Dallas Mavericks fans. It's a disgrace. It's a disgrace. Now, I'm starting to believe that with this move, right? Mark Cuban quitting, not letting the pretty much not letting the starters play, not clearing players, Kid not playing the starters. Well, Luka played like the first quarter or something like that, but that's essentially not playing. I don't know whether Mark Cuban might have, in his not so distant plans, to fire Jason Kidd. I don't know. That's a possibility, because we know how Luka is. Luka may have went to Mark Cuban and said, "I want another coach." Maybe this will be justification for Mark Cuban to fire Jason Kidd. Who knows? Now, I think I read Luka's going to play like the last game. For what now? You guys quit. I hope he has a shit water game if he plays the last game of the season. A shit water game. So, let's see. Dallas right now, 38-43. The best they can finish is 39-43. But they're out of it because the Thunder have the tiebreaker, if I'm not mistaken, over Dallas. So it's over. But if if they had won yesterday and won their last game, and then, their destiny would not have been totally in their hands. They would have had to have some other teams lose. But still, you could have still been in it. And just being in the play-in tournament gives you a shot to make the playoffs. Look, the 2021 Wizards, didn't they start the season like 3-10? 3-9? 2-8, I think, something like that. They had a horrible record. Russell Westbrook put that team on his back. Bradley Beal had the best season of his career. They went to they made the 10th seed, and they actually made it to the playoffs with the 10th seed, right? In the play-in. But they had to win 2 big games on the road, if I'm not mistaken. Now, even though they lost 4-1 to the Sixers because they were just totally overmatched, but that was honorable. And I thought Russ should have got more praise for that. But no, you had people like Stephen A. Smith saying, "I don't mean nothing. A championship is what he has to do. He has to win a championship." With what? Bradley Beal? Okay, but he has to win a championship, right? Where's the expectation for Bradley Beal? This is the problem I have, right? This is the problem I have with this. So, according to Stephen A. Smith, Russell Westbrook has to win a championship to get approval from you guys. But Bradley Beal don't even have to make the playoffs. You see what I'm saying? Certain players don't even have to make the playoffs and they get praise. But anyway, that's all I got to say about it, man. This shit is disgrace. Tell me what you guys think.